What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the news affecting Tesla right now, how the overall market may dictate Tesla's share price, what the technicals and data are telling us about the market in Tesla, and what you should be watching for tomorrow as I give you guys my price prediction. Now, before I break anything down about Tesla, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed 7 free stocks plus free level 2 data, and the offer ends in just 4 weeks. So make sure you check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So anyways, looking at Tesla, this thing ended up closing down over 5.85% for the day, and this thing was getting very tight as we got closer and closer to Investor Day. Now, I mentioned to everyone that Tesla would most likely see a big drop if they didn't announce anything big during Investor Day or even meet expectations, and that's what ended up happening. Now, the target level that I was talking about would be 187 to 189. That's where Tesla had a very important demand zone. And we ended up bouncing off 186. So just $1 below the zone I was talking about. And we ended up bouncing right about there. And we're actually holding up okay. Now, Tesla is trying to push a little bit in the after hours, but overall, it is still very low compared to where it was from before. But the real question is the market going to bounce? Are we going to see Tesla continue pushing up? Or is Tesla going to tank from here going forward? And I do want to answer that question, but first I want to talk about the news. So first off, more articles are coming out about Investor Day being a big dud and this and that, and that's actually completely fine. But as an investor in Tesla, I believe it's not necessarily the end of the world, because for the short term, sure, it led to some downside because there were so many high expectations which were not met. But for the long term, this was still a very good event, because one thing I know for sure is that Tesla has a very good production line. They have amazing products. They're going to continue to grow as time goes on, and they're working on becoming a lot more optimal and efficient going forward despite that. So as a long-term investor in Tesla, you should be very proud of Investor Day and be very excited about some of the things they said, because I'm very confident they will meet a lot of their goals. But for the short term, once again, we are seeing a bit of a slowdown in Tesla's share price. Now, one other bullish piece of news is Tesla got another $330 million in tax breaks for the state of Nevada after they did address their infrastructure strain. And this is actually going to take place with the big investments they made once again in Nevada for the Gigafactory over there to help produce the semis for Tesla. Now, this is very good news for their financial team, and this will also help the company going forward, because anything like that during times like these, once again, will help them. Another bullish piece of news is the fact that Wedbush analyst Dan Ives stated that he believes Tesla is still very compelling. He mentioned that there was nothing specific about another, lower priced EV for the next gen or anything like that, but he still believes that Tesla has amazing, amazing, amazing specs. They have amazing stats coming out, and they have the power and the potential to produce cars globally and scale them big time very, very quick. So he considers that very bullish news, and for that reason, Wedbush has actually maintained what they said about Tesla from the beginning. They're reiterating that it's going to outperform, and they're maintaining their $225 price target on Tesla. So that is a good piece of news that came out. Now, for the short term, I can't guarantee it's going to happen that quickly, but once again, it still could happen. Now, for the medium term, I am bearish for the markets. I mentioned that to everyone, but I did mention a bounce could come very soon. We did see a bit of a bounce, and maybe this could help Tesla temporarily. And there's a chance it actually could happen for another week or two. But once again, do not let yourselves forget what's likely going to come later. I'm going to talk about that in the charts in a couple of minutes. We can see right here, analysts known as Wedbush, they gave Tesla, they reiterated the outperform rating, saying that Tesla is going to outperform the market alongside Wells Fargo and other banks out there. This is very awesome considering the good earnings they've had. On top of that, Tesla does tend to be green about 48% of the time on Fridays, so it's a little bit better than Thursdays. And we do have a tendency of seeing Tesla slowly do very well, maybe by like the third or fourth hours, going into like the second to last hour of the day. So just be on the lookout for that, especially for tomorrow. Now, as far as short interest goes, right now it still is relatively low. We did see an extra few million being shorted just yesterday. But since then, I mean, we're not seeing way too much crazy shorting on Tesla. And I find that very, very interesting. It's almost as if Wall Street knows something. They know the market could maybe hold up for a little bit before they do start to pile in again. Now, as far as Tesla goes, one thing that's not that good was we have 180 million in volume. That's just below the average volume, not by that much. And we're actually down 5% despite that. This means that we're getting lots of selling pressure. With the high volume, it's making up the majority of the selling pressure. And this is actually showing a strong trend to the downside, at least for the time being, right? Now, on top of that, we can also see that the short volume percentage likely is going to increase over the next couple of days, once again, because we did see an increase in the shorting. Now, it's not the end of the world, and the reason for that is because the market is actually starting to rebound a bit. I'm going to explain exactly why. So, some economic data came out, and one thing that was not too good for Americans right now is the fact that initial jobless claims were lower than expected. This means that we have a stronger than expected jobs market, and the Fed is likely going to have to tighten more, exactly what Jerome Powell said in the past. Kashkari and many other of the Fed speakers did mention this, but some of them actually stated that they're going to remain in the 25 basis point camp for the time being. That's why the market started to rally today. There were also many technical reasons for it. Now, for tomorrow, we do have PMI data coming out in the morning, so expect lots of volatility. But it's going to be crazy after the first couple of hours because we have the Fed Logan, the Fed Bostic, uh, Fed Bowman, all of them are going to be speaking. Logan and Bostic, let me actually check this for you guys. So Logan and Bostic, they actually have a tendency of not being like extremely hawkish. Bostic, it tends to be a little bit more on the hawkish side. I believe they actually spoke today. They actually helped the market pump, so that was a little bit surprising. But then at the end of the day, we have Bowman speaking, and Bowman has a tendency of actually being less hawkish and a little bit more on the dovish side, right? So this could actually help the market to some degree near the end of the day. And on top of that, one thing that is a little bit bullish for the markets, at least for Friday, is the options chain right now. And that's because of the facts that when you look at SPY, Max Payne's at $398 with a 1.52 put to call ratio. You could see right here, we have 800,000 puts out of the money, 500,000 calls out of the money, and we only have 100,000 of each in the money, right? This tells me that the market makers are going to be incentivized to hold the market up, maybe even have us close above 398 for tomorrow. So they don't have to pay out the premiums and they could actually make money from the process. Now, this puts them on the better end of the spectrum, and I do believe the market makers are going to likely try to do that. This also benefits them because the last Fed speaker speaking at the end of the day, once again during the last hour, is Bowman, and he is a little bit more on the dovish side. So he might say some things about like a 25 basis point hike, and the market might just choose to rally off of it, even regardless of what he says, because the market makers, once again, are going to likely try to hold us up. Now, this is good news for Tesla in a way because, once again, Tesla does have a tendency of being affected by the overall market, especially because of what the QQQ is showing us. But the problem with Tesla is this. The put to call ratio is only 0.77. This means that the majority of investors have calls on Tesla. And Max Payne's at 202. So, I mean, it is possible for us to try to push up a little bit, but overall, it would benefit the market makers a little bit more if they do actually try to push Tesla or keep it around these levels, not push it up way too much. So there is a chance that that could end up happening. But I do believe that the overall market could actually help Tesla rebound a little bit, especially because of how it's affected during times like these. Now, let's talk about the charts real quick. For SPY, I called this out yesterday. I didn't promise the exact date, but I told you we were developing a potential divergence on SPY, a bullish divergence that could actually help us get a rebound, a bounce. I did talk about this. I wasn't sure exactly when, and we do need some confirmation about this, but we did actually get a bounce off the previous resistance of this falling wedge. So we had a falling wedge. We were stuck between resistance here and then support. We broke above it. So right here, we broke above it, and we've been treating the resistance as support. And we actually got our final bounce very close to it. We started pushing up, got some strong volume today. The MACD is now favoring the bulls a little bit more. But I want to note that if you look at the RSI was at about 34.76 way at this low, way back here. And then the RSI reached about like 30, what is that, 38, 37. The lowest it actually went to in March was like 36. So the RSI made a higher low. The RSI got higher, but the chart on SPY got lower during that time frame. That's a divergence, and that's why we got a nice breakout from here. Now, this is artificial because the market makers are artificially trying to pump the markets to try to cause pain for the puts out there, also some pain for other people from different like stocks and etc. But that's what they're trying to do. This could even lead to a small short squeeze, at least so far. We're likely going to see SPY try to fight for 400 and maybe close around 398. That's what the odds are favoring. I can't guarantee it though, because once again, the market could be very capricious, but I am a little bit more inclined to seeing us close above 398 because that's where max pain is, and that's what the market makers may try. The dollar index is starting to show a little bit more weakness on the hourly time frame. We're getting closer to a crossover right here on the MACD and also on the daily. We're also seeing the MACD getting tighter, telling me that momentum is slowing down. It's not as like strong to the upside as it was before. It's slowing down a little bit. A lot of this had to do with the news involving China reopening, and also big changes to the demand in different commodities. That doesn't matter too much. This thing might cool off a bit, maybe come down to the low 104s, maybe even 103. It's possible. But overall, the trend is still bullish. The bigger trend is still bullish. Like I'm talking about for the next few weeks. But for the short term, this thing could drop a little bit more. And if that happens, that could be a little bit more bullish for the stock market, right? This is similar to what I told you guys yesterday. Once again, it is starting to play out a little bit more. I also mentioned to you guys that the triple Q would likely come down to about 288. I actually drew out 288 right here. We actually bounced off 288.37, and then we might see this thing try to bounce a bit. I wasn't sure if it would happen today or maybe next week. It ended up happening today, but we need some more confirmation to actually confirm this move. Now, what's good about this is we have a gap all the way up here around this 296. It could try to fill it. Then there's another gap all the way up to about 300. So there is a chance. I don't really want to call this the bottom. I'm still a little bit hesitant because it is possible for us to come down first one last time and continue. But the odds are favoring, like I showed you guys with the options chain, the odds are favoring. The market might try to hold these levels and maybe try to push a little higher for tomorrow and beyond. I told you all the VIX was looking a little bit bearish to me. And I'm not saying that the VIX is like what's causing the market to move the way it is. This is just reacting to the market, but the VIX could give us more intel on it. And I told you the VIX would likely fall to the 19s. I was talking about that. That is what ended up happening too. And I don't know how low it's going to go. We might try to base around 19. We could go a little lower, but it is telling me that the market could actually try to hold a little bit better. Now, one thing that's a little bit contrary, I'm going to talk about two last things before I talk about Tesla. One thing that's a little different is Apple. I told you all Apple would likely come to about 144 and then try to bounce. We'd bounced off 143.9. So what I'm seeing on Apple is if this thing wants to bounce, we want to see this thing fill its gap around this 149 area, and there's another gap around 152. If we could bounce off here and try to hold this range at least for tomorrow and continue with an uptrend, this could actually push SPY up and even the QQQ and the overall market. And if the whole market starts to get buying pressure, it has a tendency of moving in a very similar algo. And when that happens, that can actually bring more buying pressure to Tesla. It's very strange about the market, but that is what actually happens. Now, as far as Amazon goes, it was looking kind of weak and tried to hold 90, kind of bounced off that. It does have a gap around the 95 area. So if it does break above 93, I could see it get to 95. And finally, let me just bring up the 10-year treasury yield. This thing is continuing to push up. All right. It's looking pretty strong, which is technically bearish for the stock market. But what's good is it has a lot of gaps below. There's a gap all the way down here around 40 flat. There's another one in the 39s. There are like two in the 38s. So if this 10-year yield starts dropping just a little bit, maybe the Fed causes it to happen tomorrow. Who knows what could cause it? It could come down to fill this gap. That could be a little bit bullish for the stock market, at least temporarily. Now, once again, this doesn't confirm it just yet because it's still holding up. We just have to wait and see if this comes down. We just have to be very patient, all right? So I'm not guaranteeing that the bottom is in for the market for the temporary term, but it is very possible and the odds are favoring the market's going to try to push up tomorrow, maybe slow down a bit, but we should get a green close on SPY, maybe the QQQ2, and this would likely help Tesla get a bounce as well. Now for Tesla, it's very hard to predict Tesla right now because this thing did get a big drop. It is trying to actually hold this level. It actually broke above, it actually bounced very close to its demand zone. It's been holding above it for quite a while. Once again, that's between 187 to 189. But so far, the technicals are basically, as of right now, a little bit more on the bearish side. They are suggesting Tesla's been on a bit of a downtrend, and there's no guarantee it's going to bounce from here. But it is very possible that if the market bounces, it could actually help Tesla rebound as well. We did manage to close above 190, so I see that as a pretty good sign. Let me go over the bullish and bearish possibilities, then give you guys my prediction. All right, so if you're bearish on Tesla, if you think Tesla's going to crash now, and I do believe there's a very good bear case. There's a very good bear case because I do see more downside for the whole market later on. I would say after CPI comes out going into like mid to late March into April, I do see lots of downside later. I'm not too sure that it's time yet for Tesla to start tanking too hard. And because the market's starting to show some strength, there's a good chance it might try to bounce. But if you're a bear, once again, you're going to be watching this demand zone. You have to watch this 187 to 187 to 189 area around here. If Tesla fails, you have to watch a 186. If that does not hold us, there's actually a gap all the way down in the low 180s. Tesla would likely come all the way down to fill that gap. It's somewhere down here in like at around 181, somewhere around there. Tesla's likely going to come all the way down there to 180 flats if it fails at 186, in my opinion. Right now, if you're bullish on Tesla, you're going to be watching some resistance. It's actually getting very tight right now, but you're going to be watching resistance around this 193.67 zone. If we could actually break above that, if we break like 193 and this thing starts pushing to 194 or so, there's a good chance Tesla might slowly uptrend and start to fill this gap and at least try to get back to 200. It's very possible. It's going to be a little tricky, but it is very possible. We also have kind of like a double gap right here, which would take us all the way up to about 200. There's a good chance it might try to rebound, maybe on Friday, maybe going into like Monday, right? So those are the bullish and bearish possibilities. Please be prepared for anything. But what do I think is going to happen? My answer to that is it depends on the overall market. I think the odds favor Tesla might try to rebound. It is a little bit oversold right now. The RSI is currently at about, where is it? It's actually at about 35. It was actually around 29 for a large part of the day, 28. On the daily time frame, the RSI is still at 51, but the MACD is still a little bit open. So there's a lot of bearish momentum right now for Tesla. I don't think it's going to get a big bounce. It's going to rebound super hard in one day unless there's a huge piece of news. I think it's going to be relatively weak compared to the markets. And I think that it's going to slow down when it comes to how much it runs because we're going to see this price pairs ratio shift a little down. I think that's likely going to happen. And Tesla's going to be a little bit slow probably for Friday and maybe even a part of next week. But that does not mean it can't bounce. All right. There's a big difference there. If I could give you guys my prediction, once again, it's very hard to predict because it depends on news and other factors. But I would presume that Tesla's trying to hold this demand zone pretty well. It actually bounced above it. It's just holding it and holding it and holding it. It's going to likely try to push up going into tomorrow, retest 193, and it might try to get to about 195 or so, maybe get a little higher than that. And we might try to see it slowly start to fill this gap a little and maybe fail to do it and end up closing somewhere in the high 190s. We're likely going to see something like that happen tomorrow. Maybe the mid to high 190s is where we close. I don't think we're going to fill this gap completely on Friday. It may take a little bit longer, but I do think that the odds favor Tesla trying to rebound just a little bit. Now, once again, it depends on lots of pieces of news and how the market performs, but I do believe the odds are favoring Tesla trying to rebound just a little bit tomorrow. Once again, I'm not seeing Tesla exploding 5, 7, 8%. It could be like a slight green day where Tesla closes around the mid 190s, maybe a little bit higher. But other than that, I mean, the market looks like it might try to rebound tomorrow. I'm hoping that we do see that and be prepared for the end of the day because that's where things could get very wild as we're getting closer to the close. And that's where the market makers are going to start manipulating much, much, much harder. So anyways, thank you all so much for listening. Be ready for tomorrow and get ready for the Fed speakers. I know we have a lot of them, and please be prepared for lots of volatility and potentially a green day in the markets, in my opinion, by the time we close. Thank you. Tesla to the moon, because the long term future is still incredibly bright, and peace out.